to us about exactly what you've discovered. You found that attackers could essentially break in and upload unauthorized videos, make private videos public. It sounds like kind of a nightmare.
Absolutely. Thanks, Emily. Yeah, so in January, Checkpoint Research was able to find a flaw and vulnerability relative to the SMS messaging, in which the way TikTok communicates with their users. And basically, what you could perform is an attack where sending SMS messages that were specifically crafted. You could modify videos, you could delete videos, you could upload videos, as well as extract personal information from that platform. And of course, Checkpoint disclosed this in a responsible disclosure, and TikTok was able to remedy the issue, and therefore keeping their users safe. This is something that we discovered back in January.
So currently, how confident are you about the security of the platform, especially as you have lawmakers calling for the app to be banned? You've got it banned in India, President Trump mulling a ban, and companies like Wells Fargo taking it off employees' phones.
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's been quite the week here in the world of cybersecurity, and a lot of things have been demonstrated relative to personal information and privacy, messagings and things like that. So specific to TikTok, they're obviously when organizations have or companies have issues like this, like we had talked about in January, they quickly ramp up and are able to make changes and to create environments that are more secure and applications that are more secure. So, the biggest issue that we see right now across all applications that are being used at a hyperscale, meaning that there's billions of users that are accessing specific applications. That as consumers and as users of the platform, we want to be assured that our information is being handled in a private manner. And that's really the concern, right? As we look at applications that again have this hyperscale and this large attack surface, are they able to have secure infrastructure? Are they able to properly handle our information? And that's obviously a big issue that's very much in the news as we sit here today.
So do you have a position? I mean, do you think that TikTok is a national security risk? Do you think that U.S. citizens should be not using it?
I'll answer the question this way. I think all nation states and all organizations and schools and things like that need to play a stake in the security and how their information is being shared. So when we look at specifically like TikTok, and we can kind of expand this as well to Twitter, is that the goal, right, is for us to be able to have trust with the companies which we share our information. But at the same time, as consumers or employees, we also have to be able to understand where our information is and how that information could be used. If you kind of look forward in the last 24, 36 hours and look at Twitter, for example, you can very much draw a parallel to what a lot of people are nervous about. If you think about what we know as we so far relative to Twitter, as we know social engineering was involved. It's potentially spear phishing could have been involved. And when those types of situations are trying to be exploited by threat actors, having personal information is one key piece of success criteria that you would need to be able to carry on these types of campaigns. So if you draw a parallel between applications that have hyperscale like TikTok and like Twitter, and then you draw the parallel to what we've seen in the last 24 hours relative to using sophisticated social engineering techniques. If you combine those two things together, that's what results in a position that Checkpoint wants to highlight, is that those are the types of things. If you draw them together, it really highlights the significance of controlling privacy and using safe and secure applications and taking cybersecurity very seriously.
Now, we are getting more information about this Twitter hack and how it was carried out, but there are still a lot of things we don't know. Twitter now saying about 130 accounts were compromised. These were very high-profile accounts, as we know. Barack Obama, Joe Biden, Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, etc. But the attackers got control of their accounts and were able to post messages from them and essentially lock them so that if you were the legitimate owner of those accounts, you couldn't even delete those tweets. What's your take on what happened here and just simply how egregious this was?
Yeah, it's a great question, Emily. So when you look at, how high profile users leverage these social media platforms, there's a lot of things that should be done, even just as regular users like myself, right? You have multi-factor authentication turned on. You keep track of, any type of geo awareness alerts that you can get, and how people are potentially trying to access your account. And in this scenario, no matter how good and how much protection people put in place, this is a scenario where, obviously, even just looking at some of the information that Twitter publicly disclosed, right, tools were accessed where this types of attack could be coordinated. So when you really break this down, it goes back to some, obviously earlier what I talked about, where you have these platforms that have very, very wide attack surfaces, and those are the targets. Attackers and threat actors want to look for areas in which there's the largest surface and the biggest return on any activity that they're trying to put out there. So, when you look at, this specific attack and the fact that the users could really have no recourse into being able to stop this account takeover scenario, you really have to look back, actually at the platforms themselves, and make sure that as we move forward through the rest of the year, that any of these sort of windows or any sort of these tools that could have this hyper level of administrative access are reduced just to the folks that actually need that access. And by doing that, it obviously reduces the risks both, from a platform perspective, but also reduces the risk of personal information or this type of, attack to be able to be coordinated, where information is being sent out as if they were somebody else. And by the way, we've seen this before in other examples outside of just Twitter, right? So we've seen examples, with SIM card swapping. We've seen examples with other instant messaging platforms where crafted information and messages could be sent. So this is not necessarily anything new. I just think that the way that we see it playing out in the last 24, 36 hours, has been very interesting and really sheds a light on how important that companies that have this massive following are able to control how the platform is being secure.